Brian Murphy with WRL, joined once again by former UNC quarterback Bryn Renner. Bryn, obviously UNC takes another loss on the road at Cal, but this was 21-18, and obviously UNC had a chance right up until the last minute before fumbling as they're going into the end zone. What did you see from the game? Obviously, too many mistakes to get the W, but do you see some of the progress that Bill Belichick's been talking about?
Yeah, I think so. Bits and pieces of it. I think it was by far the best game we've played from all three phases this season, which is very promising. And they've had two bye weeks in between Clemson and kind of just a lot of off time. So it looked like a team that kind of fixed some things, right? And to have the ball driving in the fourth quarter with a chance to win and then obviously fumble and not be able to execute that is something that they can see momentum. You can see the guys getting better. I thought you saw Geo Lopez. He was 19 of 35 for 167, and he had three explosive plays, which was better in the passing game. I still think there's room for improvement. I think he's a little bit late on his timing. I think there's things that he can clean up for as far as his footwork is concerned. We also haven't seen him since a couple weeks, so it's been a while since we've seen him. So you kind of saw that. But I was really encouraged also to see Benjamin Hall. I think he, 14 carries for 74 yards. I think he provided a spark, and since he's got his first touchdown, he's really kind of come on. And then Kobe Paysor got six receptions for 101 yards, and looked like a big time receiver that made some plays. So Brian, as a whole, offensively, I think we're seeing good progress being made, but I think we got to see more. It's 21-10 and late, early in the fourth quarter, and that we weren't really doing much offensively. So there's lulls in the game where I'm still confused on where we're going. But I think it just takes time and takes reps. And I do think the defense is getting better. I'm really impressed with our defensive line all year. We have stopped the run at a really good rate. I mean, teams are not running on the ball on us. And I think, look defensively, when you watch the film again, um, I think Coach Belichick and honestly Steve are trying to play, generic coverage, a lot of man-to-man, a lot of cover one, and stopping the run. They don't want the teams to run on us. So I think you're seeing that, and we're playing. We played a lot better. So it was encouraging, but still not what we're looking for.
Obviously, two huge fumbles. One on the first play from scrimmage sets Cal up with a short field. They score four plays later, and the last one, it really looks like Leacock is going to score the touchdown there, and a terrific play by the Cal defensive back to punch it out. Those are the kind of mistakes that
Mhm.
are just killers, especially when you have an offense that just isn't capable, as it appears, of putting up 30, 35 points. That you look around the country, most teams are scoring. These games are high scoring games. It doesn't look like UNC is capable of putting up that kind of offensive production, and so every mistake just gets magnified.
Yeah, you really have to when you play the type of offense that we are, and we're trying to play a pro style type of NFL system. Um, it's not going to be scoring in bunches. It's going to be those defensive wins these games, and that's kind of when you look at Coach Belichick's career, it's been kind of his mo. I think if until Josh McDaniels got there in New England, they really didn't score points at a premium. It was always kind of close type ball games with really good defense, and I think that's just the nature of ball that he plays. But I think in today's day and age of offenses getting more and more possessions because the other team is scoring more, right? So the offense is scoring in three or four plays, across the sideline, and it takes you 10 to 12. Well, sometimes those drives get screwed up by turnovers, by penalties. It's really hard to stay drives in college football because it's a different type of brand and style because those teams are running 60 plays. And I noticed it when we went from Butch Davis to Larry Fedora. I was in both 2 years with John Shoup, and we were huddling up, and our possessions were, at eight a game. And then you look at teams that are getting 12 possessions, and when I was with Larry Fedora, we were scoring 60 points. So there's different play styles. So I think it's just that type of brand of football. But when you play that brand of football, you really can't make mistakes because a turnover will really cost you. And I think that's what happened in the Cal game.
You talked about Gio Lopez. I put on Twitter earlier in that game. He looks so mechanical playing quarterback.
Mhm.
Like, you can almost see him making each read. I noticed that really there was like a swing pass behind the line of scrimmage. It looked like that maybe it was his third read. Just by the time he got to it, it was so late that the play had kind of been blown up. You're a guy who's played the position. You've coached the position. You've played it at the NFL level. What are you seeing out of Gio as far as playing quarterback, and how quickly he's able to process kind of information?
Yeah, and the first thing I'll say is I'm never going to throw a quarterback under the bus because I've been there, right? And I'll say this from the the amount of reps you have to get, Brian, as far as seeing the defense and getting live game reps at the position is the most critical thing you can do for a young player. I still think Geo's a young player. And if you look at his last month, well, he didn't practice, he's coming off injury, and we're still accounting for the fact that he had only probably 3 weeks to prepare with this offense. So that body of work, especially with the injury and coming off of that, is not enough for him to feel comfortable in the pocket. And I think that's just what you're seeing with late reads. I'll say this: anytime you're late with a throw, it starts with your feet. Your feet. If you have a 3-step drop and you don't throw it on, I'm late to every single throw. And I think that's what we're seeing. Like I saw a ball in a shallow cross, third quarter was behind Philly Paysor, and it was just a ball here, and he could have got it out a little bit quicker and been on time and in rhythm. So I think that was the only thing that I saw that really is kind of holding him back from taking that next step is and the anticipation factor, which really just comes with your footwork, timing, and rhythm, and getting the ball in your hands. But his body of work with the injury, with having basically a month off of not playing or practicing only, it's tough. And I think you see that in the 19 of 35. And if he doesn't have those 3 explosive plays, then he's looking at a 16 of 32 for maybe 100 under 100 yards. So there are a lot of things that are attributing to kind of his development, but I think he's still developing and growing, and we still always have to give that guy at that position some time.
Leading up to the Cal game, obviously a ton of noise. Some of it reported by WRAL about division in the locker room. Bill's culture. A lot of that seems to be the transition from the most college of college coaches in Mac Brown to maybe the most professional of professional coaches in Bill Belichick. There seems to be some players caught in the whiplash of that. But Pablo Torre with another podcast, reports about Saudi Arabia. I mean, it just seems like the noise around this program never stops. As a player, is there any way to avoid all that at this point, or do you just try to keep your head down and improve what you can improve?
Yeah, you avoid it at all costs. And I think that's the best thing about football is that when you're on the field for those 4 hours during the game and practice, none of that crap matters. Like, and that's the biggest thing. And I went through it personally when I was at Carolina. We went through the NCAA sanctions. I mean, we went through Coach Davis getting fired, Everett Withers being our interim coach, and then Dickie Bador was let go as the AD, and there's a ton of turmoil. So I had to answer those questions from the NCAA, and that was something that I really hang on to this day is that we never lost and never wavered. We were 5-0, 5-1 going to play Clemson. And we had a team only meeting and it was all about the players. When you're a player, it really doesn't matter who the coach is. It really doesn't matter who's out there because you're just with your boys going to play ball. And I think if the kids in the locker room can say, look, let's just come together, band together. It's about us for those 4 quarters. And it's about our play on the field that really matters ultimately. And so I know those messages are probably getting echoed. So I think I'm just going to leave it at that and just speak upon how the players can get through that.
Let me ask you one more related to that. You obviously went through a coaching transition. You have players who committed under one coach and then players who have committed under another coach. How do you make sure that you're all one team and some people aren't seen as, well, look, this guy didn't bring me in, so he doesn't like me as much as he likes some of these guys. Obviously now we're dealing with NIL and money differences and all that stuff, but you at least experienced it at a time where one coach brought you in and then another coach came and brought in his own guys.
Yeah, and it teaches you a lot of resilience because in your heart, you know that you weren't recruited by the guy. And it was something that, I really appreciate Larry and his staff and Blake Anderson. For me personally, when that happens, they won't bench you if you're playing well. And that's the biggest thing I learned is they will not bench you if you're playing well. So if you want to play better and make them learn how you are as a person and a player and how you can be successful. And I think that's the coolest thing about sports is you control your own destiny by how you play and how much playing time you do get. So if you focus on what you can control, which is all your play on the field, they can't take you off. That was the biggest thing. I was a spread quarterback in high school and what's the style. I wasn't the type of quarterback that he wanted, but I refused to have him take me off the field. So I wanted to show him I could play. And that's the same thing for these players. They really have to unite and say, look, if I focus on my personal process, and I think that's what Coach Belichick's messaging is trying to be, focus on your job, what you need to do to get better and practice each and every single day, then the score is going to reflect itself. And I think these kids showed improvement against Cal, but I think you got to keep stacking those days and have some leadership involved in there.
Up next, Virginia at home. Virginia's had a remarkable turnaround. I mean, they've sort of been the example of how you can get a program that's struggling. They're ranked in the top 25. Get it turned around so quickly. They're undefeated in ACC play. That loss to North Carolina State doesn't count as an ACC game, which is bizarre and may factor in the race here as we get down the stretch. But
Hmm.
what do you see? I'm not sure you haven't dove into the Virginia tape, but they're a program that's done the exact turnaround that you're looking for Carolina to do. You look at the rest of the season. What does Carolina need to do, or how winnable are some of these games down the stretch?
Yeah, I've enjoyed watching UVA, and I went to the Virginia Tech UVA game last year, which was their final game when they had a different quarterback, and I think Chandler Morris is making all the difference. You watch him play, and the team feeds off his energy. He's been extremely accurate with the football, one of the top passers in the ACC, and they have really good running backs and a really good wide receiver, and it looks like you know the type of situation that UVA has been under, kind of just the entire influx of just a lot of off the field stuff as well. They've really banded together. It looks like a really complete team. And when you win close games, Brian, it really shows the character of your football team, because late in the fourth quarter, they were down two scores and had some really freaky things happen, and they responded. And that's what good teams do, is they win those critical moments in the fourth quarter that determine the football game. And I've been really impressed with the quarterback play. I think their defense is playing a lot better. They're tackling better. And that was kind of the first time that I watched them full game when they played Washington State. And it's one of those gritty games, and so it's going to propel them. I know they have some injuries that happened in the game. I think two of their top guys might be out. But as far as UNC looks at it, I think it's a huge opportunity, right? You have to be licking your chops where you can say, this is our moment to be on a prime time stage where we're going to play the number 15th ranked in the country. They're coming to our house. Let's go make a statement. And you got to preach that all week, because you have a chance to, okay, let's see where we are. And that's the biggest thing in college sports, is like, okay, well, UVA's coming in town. Let's go play some ball now and have a little confidence and play with your hair on fire. So hopefully we can do that this week.
One storyline we're likely to hear this week: Chandler Morris, the transfer quarterback at UVA, according to a story in The Athletic, wanted to come to Carolina. Mike Lombardi said he doesn't look like a professional quarterback or an NFL type quarterback. So I think we're going to hear that storyline a lot this week. Give me three keys of what you saw to Carolina against Cal, where they maybe need to make a little bit of improvement to go ahead and upset a team like Virginia.
Offensive consistency, number one. Got to score points. You can't have drives that end in punts, because UVA is going to be able to run the ball pretty effectively, and they've done that all year. They're averaging, I think, over 5 yards per rush or six. You have to, and you can't rely on the third and longs that we've been in. So you got to get yards on first and second down with triple. Defensively, number two, it's critical that you tackle this week. We haven't been a naturally good tackling team this year all season, and I think that's one thing that I think is something that they need to do, is tackle. Got to tackle on defense. And number three, you really have to limit their explosive plays. That's the biggest thing, is if you can limit their explosive plays down the field and limit their opportunities to get the ball back and to go score, you're going to have a chance to win. And one thing, you got to do something in this game to create momentum and create energy. I don't know if it's a fake field goal, fake punt. You got to start bringing those things out. It's a trick play. There's things that you've been holding out all season. You really you gotta out in this team, because you're gonna have to play your best against UVA.
Yeah, we saw the swing gate play lead to a long completion against Cal. So a little bit of creativity
Yeah,
helped spark a drive in that game. Bryn Renner, thank you so much for joining us as you do every week here on WRAL. Appreciate it. No more bye weeks. Carolina's got their two bye
no
weeks
more
out of
bye
the way.
weeks.
They're playing every week. Obviously, after Virginia, they play on a Friday night again at Syracuse. So kind of we'll get in a more natural rhythm of football here after those a very strange bye week schedule. And so Carolina got a lot of work to do if they're even going to get bowl eligible. Need to go 4-2 down the stretch these last six games. But Bryn Renner, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it.